Okay. Okay, well, we got quorum. 7.3, Tara Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2021-10, Council Procedural Bylaw, first reading. Now before you is the background information and the draft bylaw. And so the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is that Council provide first reading for Bylaw 2021-10, Procedural Bylaw.
Thank you. Shane?
I'll make that motion. Number 1, that council provide first reading for bylaw 2021-10.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments on it?
Now I do. Okay, back to page 95,
Yeah.
where we got the stuff from the, contacted legal and recommendation as below. It's all in blue. Is that going to be part of the bylaw?
It won't be incorporated in the bylaw. Where I'll incorporate it is in the procedure. So I think if we go ahead with this, that we should have a procedure for the recording and live streaming of council meetings. And then, so then basically if this procedure bylaw passes or even receives first or second reading, then the next council meeting, I'd bring back the procedure that kind of just outlines the procedure for how it'll be done. But yes, this would be in it, in the procedure. No. Yeah, the recommendation was to have it in the policy and also having a state on the county website. Those 2 spots.
So that recommendation for in blue would not be in the procedural bylaw. If the procedural bylaw is passed by council, the next step would be to have a policy that deals with the legal counsel's recommendation.
Oh, okay, so you're saying it can't be in the bylaw, it has to be in a policy or in a procedure? It could.
But it was recommended. It was
Recommended by the lawyer to go into procedure. Okay, that's why it's, yeah, I think that's what Councillor Shane is asking, why.
It was recommended by legal, then is what you're saying, that it doesn't go into this, goes into procedure.
You would have a separate, procedure policy.
Okay.
You're good with that? As long as it gets into a procedure policy is what you're saying.
As long as it gets in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So we're covered.
Yeah, through the chair to Dan. I definitely will be putting it in the procedure, and also we'll be putting a disclaimer on our website as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I've got a question. I just can't turn my camera on for some reason. The one thing that did jump out to me within the blue text that was there is there's a portion here. It says that it cannot be utilized for any kind of political activity and such as election campaigns, partisanship, or partisan activity as Cypress County claims it copyrighted the recording. My question with that is that obviously a recorded video of somebody else in a video that would promote partisanship, that would be slander in my opinion, and it would be completely off limits. However, if Shane wanted to highlight something that he was focusing on and pursuing within his own or his ward, and wanted to take a portion of the meeting and say,
Okay, Robin, we're having technical difficulties with
speaking
you.
up for pipeline grazing as an example. I don't see that as a negative thing. I think that my question is, Okay.
We've missed half of your question because
Can
you're
you hear me
breaking
now?
up so badly, Robin.
You know, I'm okay leaving this until second reading. I'll support it as it is for first.
Well, again, this part in blue will not be in in this bylaw. It's going to be separate altogether. This was just what we asked, so that's why it's in blue. It has nothing to do with the reading of today. Did I lose you or did you understand?
Oh, I got you. I hear
Okay, so you got it. This will be brought back. This blue part will be brought back in the future for the,
A supplementary policy to go with this bylaw.
okay? I'm guessing he's okay.
you. Yeah, I'm
Okay. Okay, so we have first reading on this bylaw. Let me, 2021-10. Any other questions or comments that needs to be added or put in where everybody's good with this so far? Okay. Okay, I'll call for the vote then. Vote. Carried. Does anybody want to make second on this or? Well, it's up to you guys if you want it. Is there anything in here that you need brought back for staff? The reason why we're not. But, okay, we need to talk to Robin because he wants it brought back for the first part that isn't going to be in there. That's it's two different things here.
But that's not in the bylaw.
That's not in the bylaw though. Go ahead.
I'd like to just leave it at first reading. I've read it twice, but I know I'm still missing some stuff there, and I really want to comprehend what's going on. So I would like to just leave it as at first
Okay.
reading.
Okay, no problem. 8.1, Terlin.
Oh, we made it to page 2. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 8.1, the financial report ending at the end of February on page 122. Is there any questions, Mr. Chair?
Alf, you're making the motion. Do you have any questions or comments? Anybody else have any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. 8.2, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you use the accounts payable listing, administration's recommendation is that council move to accept as information.
Dustin.
Move to accept it. I have a question on City Medicine Hat stuff. Is that our water allocations per month, the account payments there? Or
So-
they are,
So
Or
we
utilities.
would have utilities.
or is it's just utilities?
Yeah.
That's what I was curious of, if it was the water, if it was utilities or
No,
power. Or,
It's all utilities, power and all that.
okay,
I asked that question the first time I signed and it was all
Perfect.
utilities are in that medicine hat stuff.
okay.
And also too is the fire services agreement too.
Yeah, I seen the
Yeah.
fire service one. I knew what that was, but I was just more curious about the utility
Yeah.
accounts, if they were more than just power, or if they were water or everything. So perfect,
No.
thanks.
Anytime we get water on there, it'll be broke out as different. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any? Vote. Carried. CAO report. Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you on page 149 is the administrative reports. Is there any questions?
Somebody want to move them so we can? Michelle? Do you have any questions on it? Does anybody else have any questions? No, I'm not seeing any. I can't see Robin, so I don't know. He'll just chime in, I guess, if he's got some. Dustin?
So are we gonna meet with the commanding officer since it asked a question in there?
Would you guys, with the with K Division in April?
Did we? We can. Did anybody have anything that we wanted to bring up? Last time, wasn't it Shane and I that went last time?
Yeah, that was in before COVID, yeah.
We didn't have anything that time either. Wasn't.
Time we were just talking about rural crime and
Yeah.
that because it was quite,
Hi.
we had a big spike in rural crime at that time.
Is there anything that you guys feel we need to talk to him about? No, they just
Sergeant Maxwell, when he comes in,
covers
that's
all
the
that.
conduit there. But unless there's something that you'd like to talk to K Division about.
Shane?
I have a question in this report. It's for the fleet department. I see the RM 500 is at Finning, Saskatoon for repairs.
I wasn't
We're
gonna
not-
bring it up.
We're not buying a new one, or we just repairing this one, or what's going on?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. We had just a few minor repairs that need to be done, and Finning has since COVID, they have an internal network where they have a controller that manages all their shops. So at no cost, they sent it to Saskatoon. So no cost to us. So all we had to be responsible for, because it's off warranty, is to get it to Lethbridge. And then after that, Finning was responsible because they couldn't repair it for us for 3 weeks. And that was just on the timelines of getting a new one. And so we need to just get minor repairs for operational repairs, not the wish list that was, yeah. So it's just to get it operational.
So are we trading that one in then?
Yes.
On a new one this year
Yeah.
still then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was something that was identified by the asphalt specialist that they wouldn't be able to sell it with there's 2 or 3 things that were deficient that really affected operations of it. Yeah.
No, that's good. I just wanted to know if we were talking about trading it, how come we were repairing it? So no, that answers that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Darcy?
That disaster letter in the reports?
Yeah, at the
Yes?
very back, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's in the
yeah,
report?
yeah.
Okay, I
She's
didn't know.
on, so it's back
That was
159, I think.
157.
something that they just threw at us again and
Yeah, so what, yeah,
didn't,
so what through,
didn't ask anybody again?
yes, when the province did their budget, the funding now has a 10% municipal component. So in large events, very large events, it will be a tremendous hardship on many municipalities, if not all.
And that's actually very consistent with other provinces in Canada.
Mhm.
We're one of the only provinces that didn't have that 10% clawback.
So what will happen is municipalities are going to need to be more and more cognizant, not that we aren't already, but of planning and the placement of developments. We already are very cognizant. we're gonna have to be more cognizant of where they are. Floodplains, forests, those type of things that create a disaster.
Ernest? Oh, sorry, Doris.
Does prairie fall into that category? In other words, if you have a town in the middle of nowhere and a big prairie fire that gets into town, it's considered back development?
I think you would identify the hazards and proceed with doing, because there's Fire Smart. It's not just into a treat area. Fire Smart is also on the prairies too. So identifying those hazards is key and essential for mitigating those hazards moving forward.
So fire guards have been used for years and years. The base is implementing more of those type of things. So those type of engineered controls, I guess, you could call them, that'd be part of the mitigation.
So then it would be more of a control than actually where you put it. Like building by a forest is kind of asking for trouble, but if you build it out in the prairie and the prairie fire starts, as long as you've got something to mitigate and protect your property, you should be fine.
Yeah, and I think that there's things that you can do, like we're talking about the prairie is if you drive into somebody's yard, and even if they're on the prairie and they have all their wood stacked up on the side of their house, on the west side of their home, well, that's not a fire smart strategy, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do, making sure we have availability of water on a homestead from a dugout, or there's things that we can do by making things fire smart. And I think that's what Terlin was alluding to, is maybe having through emergency management come out with some of that specific to the prairies to help with our residents.
I could clear cut about a half a quarter of bush and I'd be good.
Darcy?
You're in a little bit different of an area.
I guess this only counts for stuff that's not insurable, right? Because I see that you can only collect once here that you have a run of bad luck. And it's, so if you get like $1,000 from them, then that's all you're ever gonna get, right?
Yeah.
In any claim?
So it used to be like per occurrence, so there's multiple occurrences. Now it's one occurrence. And yeah.
And you were seeing that lot from communities not looking at their own plans and then having it redevelop in areas that were floodplained and already paid out once. So example, High River, they got paid once and now they rebuilt in that same floodplain. So.
You good? You have another one? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Jane?
So does this mean that we'd maybe have to run a fire hydrant to every farmhouse? Water line everywhere?
Nice try. No more building permits for houses. Okay, any other questions or comments? Who made the motion? Michelle did, yeah. Okay, not seeing any other questions or comments. I'll call for the vote. It's carried. Reeve and counselors' reports. I did mine up and put it on for you guys, so if you have any questions, you can just ask me. Otherwise, we'll start with Shane.
Pretty quiet. I just attended the 2-day RMA conference, and that was it since the last meeting.
Ernest?
The RMA. Yeah, same thing for me. Look at a couple of roads that are falling apart around the countryside from the frost coming up. That's about it.
The RMA had a library board meeting finally. Over a year for one of those. And the planning, I do believe. MPC?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. to put that on. Yeah, we did have MTC. Oops. I was counting on you to cover that for me. Richard?
Yes, RMA, the library board, Darcy's right. That was a year in happening, but we actually spent a couple hours on it. So it was a good meeting. Like Dustin went and looked at a couple of roads and passed on some email messages and some conversations with some farmer ratepayers about where the taxes might go and just general conversation. That's it.
Michelle?
I had counsel, the RMA, a couple of Cypress View meetings, which he's pretty much covered in his report. I also got a call from MLA Michaela Glasgow the other day, asking to set up an appointment for me to speak with her about our FCSS programs. And other than that, I think that was about it.
Elf?
Yeah, I attended the RMA virtual and also attended the Medicine Hat Family Services last night. And yeah, they were very thankful for some of the grants that were, the extra grants that were put out there for them to, apply for and get. Hey, so otherwise they were down like 39% of their fundraising this year. So due to the COVID and that. So that was really the biggest thing, like, being able to access those extra grants. So very thankful. And a big thank you to Cypress County for support.
Robin? Okay. All right, sorry about that, Robin. Any other questions on the reports? Golf is moving them. Vote. Carried. We have got, let's do one more, then we'll take a 2-minute break before the delegation. 11.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request for variance, 21-505-18 Alberta Limited. Before you is the background information. It is recommended by administration that council allow for the fertilizer storage facility to commence operations as the county has issued the CCC for the paving of Range Road 60 and the internal access road. And the developer has entered into an agreement for the intersection, which will be completed by Cypress County this summer.
Dustin?
Move recommendation number 1.
Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. Okay, we'll take a 2-minute break until 1 o'clock for delegation. I just wondered if you wanted to action for changing all that anything.
Hey guys, council's just going to take a short recess just while we get you guys kind of up and going for your presentation.
Okay, so this, they would be able to click that.
I think it's muted now.
We're just about ready. And Cyril, just so you know, I have printed off a big ortho photo of the road as well. Plus, then at some point we can put up the really cool drone video of it.
Okay, that sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, the Reeves just on his way back in, and then we'll get going here. Okay, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Leslie.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Our delegations are online, so I will give the floor over to you guys.
Thank you, Cyril Anders with the Hilda Community Association. I'm the president of that Board of Directors, and I want to thank the council for making time to receive our delegation, and we look forward to the opportunity for some productive dialogue here. I'd also like to acknowledge Devin McNeil. He's a farmer in the area here and a member of the Hilda Volunteer Fire Department. And Barry Fisher is a rancher in our area and also the president of the BT Grazing Co-op. So we appreciated their input into this delegation presentation. I understand that there is either some drone photos or drone video footage by the county, and I would like to have opportunity for that a bit later on in our presentation. I'd just like to get into a brief history of the road, and if anyone has a question while I'm talking, just let me know, Leslie, or we just want to make sure that we can all stay together here. But a brief history on the road is that the Bylaw Ferry Road used to be the only regional north-south road corridor with river crossing. And from our history book, I got the information that it was constructed in 1956, and the ferry operated until 1961 when the Highway 41 and Sandy Point Bridge were opened up. And so locally, that road has historic significance, but more importantly, as far as past and present usage, we have the primary usage of that road was for recreation and the possibility of use for emergency response. With regard to recreation, there was 70% of those who signed a local petition indicated that recreation was a preferred use for that road. And we appreciate Cypress County recognizing the importance of recreation in the community. I recall a year ago this time that there was a questionnaire, I believe, that had gone around regarding a Cypress County recreation master plan. And I think that speaks well of the county's recognition of the importance of recreation. And I think it's also important to not limit the recreation possibilities to the more popular ones of playgrounds, arenas, walking trails, ball diamonds, that sort of thing, but to include things like fishing, hunting, and boating, which have been the purposes of river access for recreation purposes down that county road, or that ferry road. And then, of course, the other aspect, which about 30% of the petition signees indicated as important, was for emergency response. Of course, the fire from 2017 is still fresh in our minds, and having that access for water supply for firefighting is important. And it does offer the opportunity for boat launch in the case of search and rescue, and as well as a land access for police and other emergency vehicles that might have to access the river. A number of years ago, there was a missing person from Medicine Hat who ended up in the river, and the body was discovered in that zone, in that area, and the police and other emergency vehicles were able to use that ferry road to access their investigation and response and extraction of that body. So at this time, before we look at the details of the road damage, if you have those drone shots ready, we can have them now, if that works. Is there a way we can enlarge that, Leslie, for ourselves? Oh, here we go.
You can keep talking through this if you'd like to. While
Okay,
it's
thank you.
going.
Okay. As we're approaching the view that the drone is showing right now, there are places where from heavy rainfall years in the past, we think 2016 primarily, and I think just on the left of the screen, I think this shows the first area where there has been a mudslide from heavy rainfall or perhaps a snow melt. And these slides have blocked off the runoff channels, the ditch beside the road. And due to this block off, there are two major crossroad runoff channels, which you can see at the bottom right-hand corner. That is the center of the screen right there. That's the worst of the two. And other damage that has occurred from snowmelt and other runoff is gullies forming along the road surface. And the damage, of course, does not fix itself. It continues to worsen for the longer that repair is not undertaken. The road itself is still usable, but preferably with an off-road vehicle. And it was interesting to note that with regular maintenance, this road survived over 60 years before this present damage began. And kudos to the county for taking the initiative to get these drone shots. They're quite amazing. And I think that it really adds to the understanding of this matter here. As far as repair points and action required, Leslie, I'm assuming that the counselors have a copy of the one-page brief that I dropped off at the office. Is that the case?
Yeah, you betcha. Everything that you gave to me, it's part of the agenda package, as
Okay.
well as I printed them off an ortho photo of the whole entire road for them as well.
Okay, good, thank you. Some really amazing shots here. Kudos to the person who took these. It's very well done. Anyway, the approach that we see as far as the basic initial and most urgent repair would be to clean up those areas where those mudslides have blocked off the runoff channels. And there is a fair amount of ground that could be accessed from those slide areas, the slumped ground, that could be used to fill in zones of settled road surface. And the transfer of ground from these areas would also facilitate cleaning out the runoff ditch area as well. Along with that, if the ditches and groomed areas could be groomed and just create a path for the runoff to go past the road rather than across it, that would be a big step in the right direction. There would have to be leveling and packing of the ground fill on those portions of the road that are filled in, where the settling has been filled in. And at the worst washouts, perhaps even the second one, we would have to install a wide diameter culvert to accommodate the runoff waters and prevent any silting in or freezing over. And then grading of the road to firm up the road surface would go a long way to prevent further damage. And then along with that, placing appropriate warning signs at the top of the hill regarding the importance of just staying off that road when it's wet, seasonal use only, use at your own risk for liability purposes. And I think that the urgency of that faces us right now is just to do a repair to stop the damage from getting worse. And annual maintenance following that will help to maintain the integrity of the roadbed. And from there, we can just assess the need for further firming up of the roadbed and maintenance. I think that it's important to view this as a valuable infrastructure resource worth preserving. And I don't know if Barry or Devin have anything to add, but if you have any questions, we can entertain them following this this drone footage here.
Shane, Shane Hawk here. I got a few comments to make. I'm a counselor and I got land where the South Saskatchewan goes through it. So I'm a river landowner, let's call it. So last year, me and the neighbor, we had to put up steel gates to block the access down because we are getting campers. We are getting dirt bike guys and they're camping down there and they got open fires. So I was wondering, when you guys are all talking about this recreation, what are you do? You're okay with the dirt bike guys finding it, open fires and everything in down there? How would you control that? Because it becomes a big liability thing, because once them dirt bike guys find out there's a nice place to go riding, they're coming. And that's how we had to stop them. We had to put up steel gates in with a lock on it.
And who has access to those gates then, Shane? How would is that doing a good job of controlling it, what you've done?
Yes, it is. It's just me and the landowner where the gates are on, and I have access down because I use his road to get down over onto mine because my access is washed out, and he keeps his up because he's got some pivots down below. But it's a really big, I hope you guys are thinking about this, because after the 2017 fire and that, we were really worried about a fire coming out of there. They're not looking after it. There's no fire pits. And we were really worried because once them fires get going in them coulees, you're not going to stop them until it comes up.
Well, your point is well taken, Shane, and that is one of the questions that that we would definitely have to address. We don't have a specific plan in that regard. You always hope that people are going to use common sense, but we find that common sense, unfortunately, is not that common all the time. And we appreciate that point. It is definitely one worth considering, because the road is open there. It's a public road, and people would use it. Yes.
I think I can answer that. It's Barry Fisher. At the edge of the BT property, at that road, we have signs up, no off-road vehicles, no fires, no smoking. We used to have trouble down there, but since we put them signs up, we haven't had any trouble at all.
Well, they just ignored our no trespassing signs and stuff, and they went. I mean, we found it a problem with a lot of them dirt bikes guys, the kids, they can find a spot to go. They're gonna go. And
yeah, like we used to have trouble down there, but we really haven't had any trouble at all with dirt bikes or anything now.
How long, sorry, Barry, how long has that been that you have no trouble?
It's probably been
2 years.
Oh no, it's been longer than that.
Okay.
We had a big wreck down there. It was probably 10, 15 years ago. There was guys started a fire down there and left a bunch of junk. And after that, we put these signs up, and really we haven't had no issues since.
Because I know in the province of Alberta, they've had a huge resurgence in public lands camping because of the closing of the campground. So they've seen people camping everywhere they can find a spot. So that was one of the concerns that we had, because once it's a public road, we'd have to build it to for the capacity of those trailer or whatever somebody wants to take down there, unless it becomes weight restricted. But
could you put a weight restriction on it? Like, is there a weight restriction on it right now?
no, it's temporarily closed due to infrastructure failure. But that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it back for councils, because they would have to determine on what level we'd reopen that road. If it's a full public access road, then it's going to have to be, or to what degree.
Okay, that's a good point. I think right now, because of the responses that we got from that petition, it seems that recreation is the primary use. And one thing that is unique here is there's really not a developed area at the river that would really facilitate a lot of trailer use, camping, unless people are just using tents, of course. But it would restrict that part of the camping aspect to it.
Dan?
You couldn't hear. They just asked what the distance from Sandy Point was on the river. One of the counselors asked. I do believe it's 20 miles.
I'm not up on that. Barry, would you have any idea?
Yeah, it would be roughly that 20, 25 miles probably along the river.
Elf?
Yeah, my concern would be who's going to enforce these conditions that are going to be put on this if we were to put conditions on it?
I think as far as BT owners, we enforce it pretty strong. We don't allow any driving off the roads. We don't allow any fires, and we enforce it.
Any other questions? Ernest.
I'd like to add to something. If that 41 highway ends up being a major accident and it's closed off, if this is not fixed, the nearest access for boat or emergency vehicle access is well over an hour longer, and time is lives. And I'm just, it would be nice, or it's something that emergency wise, it is something that is very useful, this road, and I sure hope that is put into consideration.
Dan? Excuse me.
I'm sorry, that was a question. I didn't pick it up. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Kim is just showing Shane here what he asked the question. He's just showing it on the computer.
Okay.
That's 20 miles. No. Thanks, man. Go ahead, Darcy. Darcy?
So I guess I gotta ask him, what's it gonna cost to fix this?
Well, it depends upon the degree that we want to fix it. If we're going to use Range Road 71 as a reference, because you can see there's no guardrails, doesn't meet 4:1, so we'd have to put guardrails up to do it right. Range Road 71, we spent $60,000 just with paleontologist. So you'd see very similar bill to that with this road. And we'd have to go through, because we'd have to do outside of a road right away to do some of the mudslides. So I would see that you would have some environmental input in that too. So it'd be tough to tell until we have that environmental review.
Would that be necessary if you are simply using ground from those slide areas to fill in places where the road has settled? Because that's not permanent terrain anymore. It has moved, and the significance of that for environmental and paleontology significance, would that even apply for those areas?
Yeah, especially since we'd be operating outside of our road right away. So we would have to consult with the public lands, because the grazing lease is on public lands. And so that's the part that would be the hang up, is we'd be working outside of our road right away, and we'd have to consult with public lands. So they would have a whole list of requirements, and that would be top of the list is environmental review.
Is anyone aware of what the parameters of that review would be in the case where you're simply using ground that has slumped up to the road, and the zone, or the road allowance along that ferry road, what width beside the road itself is considered road allowance, where you could work without having to come under the guidelines or restrictions of paleontology or environment?
Yeah, very good question. So that's a 66-foot right of way. Sometimes the road doesn't fit right in the middle of the right of way, so it could be on either one side or the next. As you can see here, and what you indicated in your findings is that we would have to do some drainage work, because you see all that slope is kind of sloping right into the road, and the drainage is all filled in. So that would be one of the requirements. And then we'd have to look at the grade. I actually got it, when we get surveyed, I actually got it droned with a LiDAR survey. So we have that grade there. And so some of the grade we're right around that 11%. Yeah, so we'd have to look at potentially shaving some of those spots off if we didn't have a runaway, because now if you built it, you'd have to have truck runaways. So yeah, it would be high level estimate. I'm thinking if we were on the thin side on doing the repair, we'd be right on about that 350 to 400,000 on the thin side. Like that's us doing most of the work, and maybe not listening to all the engineers' recommendations about guardrail the whole length down, because that would, if you had an engineer look at it, they would require that. That would be a given. But yeah, so that's for public access. That'd be my light guesstimate there.
Okay, appreciate that. Appreciate you putting
1.2 million was 71, and that was stretch a third the size.
That was 1.2 million for what length of road?
Range Road 71, and that was roughly 1 kilometer. So that's roughly a third of what we're doing here.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate the items or the considerations that engineers would want to include in that. I think what we need to keep in mind is the actual usage would be primarily lighter duty vehicles, people going down there to fish. And if we do access that for firefighting and water supply, in those cases, we would maybe have heavier trucks. And I'm not sure what sort of a runaway slope would be possible there, but I can understand that if you put a runaway slope in, that's a pretty major development. But I don't see the necessity of that, considering the level of usage that seems probable in the past and present.
So Kim, this road right now is closed.
So our construction foreman talked with, Barry, was that you talked with Mr. Matson? Was that 2 years ago?
Yes.
And so when we talked to BT Grazing, it was, we were wondering about the access point, and from what they told us was they access a lot of that by quad or by side. So that was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it back to council, because there is the opportunity of closing it for public access and leaving it for for authorized personnel. So it fit with your firefighting capabilities and for landowner access through light duty. It would, I know this is the only access to the river, but as my role as a DEM, I would probably look at other accesses for water source, because having a loaded fire truck, when we're talking about runaways and going down a road like that, you would want to make sure that you have, like you're considering that, because if you're having somebody go down there adrenaline pumping, and you'd want to make sure that you have the safety. If we're looking at for fire services, you'd want to make sure you would have that safety component looked after. So yeah, that's
Okay, so right now it's a closed road. It's not considered a trail or anything. It's an actual road.
It's closed for the purpose of infrastructure damage. It has not been closed by motion of the minister, because that's what we would have to go.
Right, yeah. But on our books, it's a road. It's an actual road. It's not a trail. It's
It's
an
Range
actual
Road 23.
For allowance.
Yep.
So I guess my question is, if we do anything to this, like as long as we don't bring an engineer into it, because then we have to do everything right up to their standards. But if we touch this in any way and try and bring it back to a use, how liable does that make us if we don't go right to our codes for our roads?
I think, did you answer your own question?
I think I just did.
I think if you're asking the question, I think you know the answer. Like, we would be liable if we're opening up the road for that use, for public use. So, and you got to look at it from anybody coming from the city of Calgary would have access to that. That's how you got to build it, right?
And you have the information that's 11% grade. You have that information. And so when you have that information, for risk management, you have to put measures in place to mitigate that, to keep the organization, so we're not libelous.
We can
come back with suggestions to ensure, to mitigate risk and to look at options of keeping the road open.
And that might be in consultation with the community group to see what kind of traffic they're looking would be best suited, because we have the ability, if it is for recreation purposes, you have the ability of closing it down for, you can make it more of a trail, like indicated, more than a road. So that, but there's a process with that.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was getting at. Do we have it as a trail versus a road?
No, it's currently as a road.
Okay. Ernest?
If BT Grazing was to hire us, just say to blade it, are we still liable?
Yeah, it's in our road right away.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
it's a first road allowance, so.
Yeah. So if we got rid of the right of way and they wanted us to blade it, then we'd be okay liable? They'd probably be liable, but we would.
They would, but it's surrounded by public lands, so it'd have to be, they would have to be consulted public lands.
yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
BT,
'cause it's the
they would
lease.
just own the road right away. So,
It's a lease thing. I
Yeah.
deal with them. I got it.
Because public lands is adjacent, we would have to look into their process. We'd have to look into that.
So, okay.
Richard?
So my question, Cyril, is just like with you, I'm just wondering why we can't clean out the ditches where it's slid in, not work off the right of way.
Yep.
And install a culvert at or two of them, get it back to the condition it was before, have some control over the drainage, and then probably turn it over to the grazing association to control the gate or to at least control access. Like,
Well,
so
once we do the repair, we won't be able to have a gate.
okay, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. But so we have to go through all of that paperwork to clean out our own ditches?
It's because you're going through an area that was identified through a historic environmental assessment, and also they've identified that's actually been an area through that's already been through the paleontologists. They've already identified that as a area with dinosaur significance, so Alberta significance. They actually found some dinosaur bones right around the corner from there. But there's no way we can do those mudslides without going off our road right away. Like that mudslide pushed right up and over the road on that one area, and the culvert is gone. And it's just a big arch. So it would cause us, we'd have to rip out the road portion to repack underneath that culvert because it washed right out. And it's actually literally an arch with a foot worth of, maybe about 2 feet worth of soil holding the vehicles that pass over it up. And so you'd be required to do some drainage works and put some mechanical structures to prevent that from happening again. Otherwise, it'll just keep on happening.
Yes, those points are well taken, and that is the reality of it. I appreciate your comment, Richard, and I think that is what we see as well. It's just the importance of taking care of a good basic repair, so that we can put a stop to the damage that is ongoing. And we appreciate your putting forward alternatives here. And one question that came to my mind was, is there something about that 11% slope? Is there a sweet spot where you have to bring it, or is there a certain slope that you have to bring it down to lessen the damage, or lessen the possibility or risk of runaway? What's the significance of that 11% slope?
Well, they would, through the chair, they would have to look at the road. So when you're looking at that, you have to look at the whole picture. So I think in a lot of cases, that's like a 5.5 meter top. Like it's very turtle backed. And so then you got to look at, not only do you look at the slope, but you also have to look at the road slope. So if you're sitting on like a 2-to-1 going down a cliff that's 70, 80 feet with no guardrail, then that 11% becomes very prevalent. So it really, like in this case, it's a lot more prevalent because there is no guardrail, and there's nothing stopping you from, if you go off to the right, you're down in the bottom of the gorge, right? So so that, I think we'd have to take a look at that into consideration. So
one other question I had, and I appreciate you bearing with us here, with regard to public lands, that would be the riparian area along the river, or are we talking alongside the road?
Actually, both. So along the river is controlled through the riparian area, like you commented, and then also on both sides is a grazing lease, which is controlled by public lands.
Okay.
But that's something that, if council wishes, we would bring back a couple different level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 or 5, whatever they looked at. Lots of options so that they can review the level of repair and then the resources that we require for that level.
Shane?
I got a question for you, Kim. So if we did improve it, it'd have to be gravel because to a good standard, because if somebody was down there and one of them afternoon thunder showers come over and soak the road,
you would never get up.
Never get up. But then would they be calling us for rescue to try to get them out of there?
Yeah.
Because it'd be our county road.
That's right.
The road does have gravel on it. It's just them spots that would be repaired that probably would need gravel.
Okay, Richard?
I'd like to see us do some more homework on this and just check with the public lands people and everything else that goes with it. We need those answers before I think we go any farther. But I see the need. So.
Okay, well, we appreciate that recognition, and I don't know, was someone else going to talk? I didn't want to cut anyone off there.
No, I was just going to ask if you had any more to add to your delegation.
I think I've covered the points that we considered important. Just the recreation part of it, and the emergency response, an extra route and access to the river is just an extra tool in the toolkit of emergency response. And we appreciate once again the time that council has made for our presentation. And if Devin or Barry have nothing further to add, we would look forward to continued dialogue and discussion on this matter. And perhaps we could have someone from the county come and actually look at the road with us, and we can discuss those options and how they would look in a first-hand situation at the road itself. So Barry or Devin, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add.
No, thank you for the time.
Okay, does anybody have any questions here? I'm not seeing any more here, so thank you very much for calling in. We will get our staff to look into this further and bring back some different options for us and see what we can do to look into this further.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you.
No problem. Have a great day.
And you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 11.2, the most allocation, the 20-mile rodeo community. Before you is their request for the most funding. The council had made a motion to contribute 5,000 to the groups that are in the rec policy. This committee is not in that rec policy. That's why it's being brought forward to you. The request is for $4,900. And the information is on page 165 of where that is coming from.
Darcy's making the motion. Number one. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Call for the vote. Carried. 11.3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister letter, Highway 41 South. There's some background information here, and administration's recommendation that council direct administration under the signature of the Reeve to forward a letter to the Minister of Transportation requesting that safety concerns on Highway 41 South be addressed.
Shane?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Everything's clear on what you need there, or do you need to add anything?
I'd just like to explain why.
Okay.
It's really, well, most of us have drove down it with pulling a holiday trailer, and it's scary as hell. To meet somebody on it, it's a really narrow road. Doesn't just about out of standard now when you want to paint the lines. And the slopes the side slopes are not 4-to-1 or 3-to-1. I mean, some places they're 2-to-1. It's a dangerous highway, and I know of some people over even on the Saskatchewan side don't even want to send their kids when it was open with the schools to send their kids there on the school bus for skiing. They're worried about the road and that in the winter time. I know some locals won't let their kids drive on it to town. They'll make them drive on the gravel road instead of using Highway 41. So I just think it's time that we address and get the minister involved and let him know it's a really poor piece of highway going up to a major resort, year-round resort.
Ernest?
I agree with most of what you said. Just add my own comments. I live south of Elkwater, and I religiously, along with most people from my country, take the Eagle Butte to Medicine Hat, because you don't want to, after you drive down the Eagle Butte, you drive down Highway 41 and you go, I remember why I don't drive on this road. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of ratepayers that are forced to do that. So we can send them a letter, and, be nice if the minister could drive down there without shocks in his car.
Anybody else? Okay, not seeing anybody. Any other comments? Motion is to send the letter in. Vote. Carried. Shane. One I actually remembered.
Mr. Chairman, our 2 o'clock delegation has canceled due to a medical emergency. And so they will not be able to attend today, and they will be rescheduling.
Okay. We will go on to 11.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pension policy. Before you is the local authorities pension plan participation policy. So the recommended motion, the council approve ADM 34 pension policy as presented. There's background under LAPP, which is governed by Alberta Pension Services. It is mandated that we have a pension internal pension policy to be approved by March 31st. So this is important. and so Mr. Chairman, administration has seeked legal, and it is an appropriate policy.
Okay, thank you. So your request is to postpone this till April?
I might cry. No.
Alf's making a motion for postponement. Okay, any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. Carried. 11.5. Terlin.
11.5 Public Works Operation Plan. Before you is the background and the operations plan, and our Director of Public Works would like to represent that. And so the recommended motion is the council approve the PW Operations Master Plan as presented, and we will go forth.
That's what page, what the heck is going on here? Right. Mine won't have a heck of a lot on it.
So we've deferred purchasing graders last year and this year. So one of the things that wasn't identified that I was reading the operations plan this weekend, and I should have been more clear on that, is so when we didn't buy graders last year, this year, so that means we're 4 graders out of rotation. So if we were going to stay the way we are, that's purchasing 4 graders, which is roughly $2 million. And part of this plan was to actually surplus graders because running them 70 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week created so that we could get more done with less equipment. So that was something that wasn't captured, is that we haven't purchased for 2 years. So we are actually have 5 graders that are outside of our council approved 5-year replacement plan. And we've talked about how we don't know if that's quite the ideal fit for us, is the 5-year replacement plan, but I just wanted to compare of what we've been doing to where we are going. I think that was something that I didn't identify as well as I should have in the plan, but that's something that we haven't purchased those graders for 2 years. So that's something that's that I should have captured a little bit better in the plan. But
So what you're saying with that, if we go with this new plan, you wouldn't have to purchase those 4 graders?
we're actually selling 3 graders.
Okay.
And
$2 million, that's a big difference.
and that's the savings, is the equipment savings, right? That's where you see the value. This is a pilot project. So the key for this is that we can come back to it. We can switch back. The idea is we wanted to bring it back to council at the mid-summer point. So if we started this May, we'd be bringing it back in the end of July, and the council would give us direction. And then if we liked where we're going, we would continue on the rest of the season. So, and then we would reevaluate in September. It's very key to bring this back and have constant dialogue with council, because this is something that I don't think that and maybe I might be wrong, but I've been calling around. There's not too many people that are doing this. Private industry does this, but not public industry. So this is something that we'd want to make sure that we have that open dialogue, because, well, I think we're going to be pathfinders into something that I think that you're going to see more trends as equipment costs keep on going up. I think this is going to be the new trend. We did it, sorry, not we. When I was in Radcliffe, we moved parks to 7 days week operation and saved significant savings because of overtime and from using less equipment and spreading it out. And this is just on a such larger scale. So I really think that it's worth the 3-month trial.
So this would be for the graders we have, the contractors would be doing the same as they normally done, or?
No, that's part of the savings, is that not only would we be getting rid of graders, is our graders would be able to encompass and do all county roads.
So we'd be getting rid of contracts too.
There actually would be certain areas that we would contract out that made sense. Mm-hmm. So for example,
1-4?
Potentially, but we think that we can do that within our envelope. An example might be the roads over on the far edge of the Bow Island area. So if you look at your map 9, area 9, that road, Range Road 120 and Range Road 124, we've already gotten prices for that from the contractor that blades the Highway 525. And that's when you took in travel time, that was significantly cheaper to contract that portion out. So we'd be looking at every little area. We've actually already talked to 40 Mile about, because we have agreements that we share some roads maintaining, and then they share some roads, because our roads don't find municipal borders. They go where they were. So those we'd be evaluating our relationships with our neighbors also, and constantly coming back with council so that they're apprised of all these changes, or they would have input in all those changes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Kim, so I'm looking at area 9 also, so like like the Township Road 122, all these roads down here, like they only got to be graded, what, twice a year, 3 times a year?
Yes, and
For
then
the amount of
that's,
traffic that's on them?
and good point. That's, and that would be taken into consideration, right? We actually had them on some of our MG roads. And then I wanted to keep the MG product down to a 20-mile starter. But those are things that we would probably look at eventually. But you are right. Those are twice a year infrastructure. And that's part of this pilot project, is examining our infrastructure, just like council's directed, and potentially looking at roads with higher significant of traffic and having a different maintenance schedule with them. And that's part of this program, is that we'd be running around with 4 floater graders that would hit these troubled areas.
Shane?
Down in that Bow Island area though, that Township Road 112A, that's a very, very, very busy little road, because that's come out of Laidlaw's. So it's a busy road, and you do that more than twice a month.
And that's exactly right. And that's an area that we would potentially, because obviously you've been down there quite a bit, but there's some acceleration and deacceleration from those curves. And that's where we'd be looking at if we find success with some of these, with MG pilot project also, we'd be identifying some of those spots. And that's actually, glad you mentioned that also. That's something that we'd be identifying, bringing back, because that could fit underneath cap funding because of what they pay into the cap fund.
Looked at him for that one.
Not for roads.
Any other questions or comments? I think you did a good job putting it together. We asked you to do it, so it's savings. You've spoke with all your staff and all your operators, or?
Yeah, yes, I have.
There's been, Mr. Chairman, there's been extensive consultation, bringing staff in and looking at the operations and how we do things, and can we do things differently? And that's been ongoing since last spring.
It's good. So it won't be a shock to him if you implement this next week and councils.
No, we've been actually working on this for 1.5 years, doing Survey Monkeys. We've done it as part of the performance evaluations. We've done it through group sessions, looking at efficiencies. We gave them targets for how to cut our budget, because at the time we were looking at making a 15 to 20% cut in public works operations. So this was part of that process.
Shane?
This 8 and 6, that's just for the graders or all departments?
No, that's a very good question. Thank you for saying that. We actually got back from, it'd be part of the pilot project. And I wanted to, because when we put people in that rotation, it'll be very clear that this is a pilot project set by council for a set term, and it'll be constantly evaluated. Yeah. But to start with, it was just for greater operations and for 2 foremen for supervision. Yeah.
Yeah. You're continuing on through this, right? This presentation, or
if you want me to, it would be the same presentation that we've done various times, but I can go through it in more detail. I didn't bring any slides because
Okay, I'll just make another comment then, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Like when you're talking about your cost analysis and that, I mean, for my previous job, did lots of it. But you didn't look at maybe like let's just use Range Road 93, if we end up oiling it, that it would have its own job number. All the equipment and everything used on that project gets houred out, billed out, so you know what every job costs you. Like even every little pit, if you're going to do a culvert, it has its own job number. Every piece of equipment, every man hour gets billed to that. So then that's the way of tracking your costs.
No,
And then when you want to analyze, is it cheaper to do it ourselves or hire it out? I mean, that's
very good.
every project we did had a job number and all the equipment, manpower, everything associated with it. And then even a percentage of the administration went to that job, to that little project too. I mean, with us, it was major jobs, but it was just a way of knowing all your costs.
No, that's very good. That was identified as one of the things that we can work on the most here at Cypress County is our asset management plan. Now, part of that in the software that we've been looking at, we applied for grant funding through FCM for various softwares through council motion, was that they can put job numbers for every asset. So we put every road would be a asset ID. And so when we do any repairs, or it could be from major repairs to light repairs, it would be keyed to that asset. And then we'll also, through this, we've also started moving our traffic counts into our GIS system too. So then we can create a dynamic traffic flow. So part of these things isn't just on equipment and operations, it's about record keeping and bringing back and having that information availability to not only administration, but to council to see those associated costs. We used to do that quite some time ago. They used to job cost every oil patch, and we could doing that when we switched to counting software. But that's part of this is part of this plan was to take advantage of some of the grant opportunities and that would allow us to better pinpoint some of our costs and where they're going. That was a good question, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it looks good in here. Like you have to keep track of everything. You got the date, the location, form, and job description. So you always remember this past summer, but you don't remember 2 years ago on what was done. So it'd be good to have a track record of it all. Ernest?
I like this plan where we've got some outside of the box things like buying snow blowers for our summer tractors to, do snow removal, going from the backhoe to a bigger machine. There's quite a few items that are, I think, very inventive. And
that was looking at examining our costs. So we went through our costs for the last 3 years. So if you look at for example, an excavator, if we just used it for snow removal down in the Elkwater area, it would make its payments for the last 10 years. Like just on what we've bailed out snow.
Maybe we'd get ahead of some of those spots before they got so bad that we couldn't even find the grader anymore.
Well, I think it's the point of utilizing our equipment. So if we have 2 backhoes and the backhoes aren't getting utilized, it's putting the right tool in the right person's hands. So with that being said, when we're doing a constant review, if we can't get the operators, then we come back to council and we let them know, hey, we can't get the operators for this type of asset, and then that's something that's going to be dynamic, and we're going to make sure that you guys are involved through that process because you've been involved for this for 2 years. So why stop now?
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Richard?
Just for clarification on my mind. So we have, with the plan that we're going to try, we would have excess graders. Because it's a trial period, are you going to hang on to those graders? And just to make sure that then all of a sudden we're not having to scramble?
No, my recommendation to council would be to dispose of those graders. And then because we've been I would do things differently. If we decide to scrap this, I would go back to, I'd look at our equipment costs, and I would probably the recommendation for council would be looking at a leased option because we can have a fixed cost in those graders. And And that
You
would
can
be,
expense them out yearly.
and you'd be
Okay.
surprised. And the funny thing is, I'd never even thought that they would put 100% of the municipal discount in the lease cost. And that was something that blew me away when we're looking at cost of ownership. And so that's why I think in the future, you'll see that coming back to council as, do we own or do we lease?
Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Okay, any other comments? Darcy's moved number 1. So he did that before we started talking about stuff.
Something that you guys will be at the forefront of all the information. So as you feel that amendments are required, yeah, that's your guys' prerogative.
Well, not right now. It's yours right now. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for number 1 to go ahead with this. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll ask for the question. Vote. Carried. 11.6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is some background and some pictures from Councillor Moody. He would like to discuss the Elkwater Town Site snow removal. And I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, Elkwater snow removal is an issue. Like those pictures were in November, and it was a couple, 3 days before anything moved out of there or anybody snow plowed. There was no emergency service, there's no nothing. And we have, I don't know, could we put up the map of the Elkwater town site? Because it's hard to explain. All right, this is my trusty little trying to find my pointer. Okay. I need an instruction course on how to run one of those.
There, I fixed it.
I could have done that. Yeah. Yeah, probably work. Probably work. Oh. All right. Yep. Wasn't me. Okay. So there's a mix of at least 2 people plowing in Elkwater. One is the Parks and one is Volker. So Parks always tell us Volker is contracted. So Volker comes in like this, goes down like that, goes over, goes up, back, down, and out of town. And they may not be back for 3 or 4 days. They're quite tall. Parks has a 1-ton truck, which they sort of, whenever they feel, they do these interior roads, these roads down here. So it's a real hit and miss thing. So like people are snowed in for 2, 3 days. We have no emergency service or whatever. So basically, I don't think this is acceptable. And I think what we need is the county to take the lead
and make sure that these services happen. I'm not saying we plow all of those, but we may have to plow some of them. Don't give me that ugly evil eye. You know, you wouldn't, nobody else would have to put a tax dollar in there because we make $293,000 a year on taxes profit out of Elkwater. So if we were to do the service and do these other streets or all the streets, but what I would see is I'd like us to be in charge, like take the responsibility that we make sure those streets get plowed, whether we get Volker to do it, we do it, or Parks, or an operation of all of them. So the residents have somebody to talk to, a contact point. They can't phone Volker. Parks is usually lost and missing. Like somebody to take charge and get this done. They are our taxpayers. And they're probably the only hamlet snowed in for 2 and 3 days on a given day. You know, then it's a safety thing. You're not going to get an ambulance in there. You're not going to get nothing. And so I think that we really should take the lead and see what we can accomplish there. Give them a contact point. We'll probably have to plow some snow, but is that all bad? We plow snow out of lots of places. So, I mean, I'll move a motion to that if that's what it takes to move discussion to get it going. Sure, they can make me the contact person as long as I can talk to the person with the snowplow.
Go ahead, Dustin.
I don't disagree completely. I think being that Elkwater is ratepayers of ours, if the service isn't being provided properly from the government, we either have to, one, address it with the government, that would probably be the first place I would go, or two, come up with some quasi-modal scheme where we work with the government to make sure it's done. But for having a hamlet that we get a tax base out of that we essentially do nothing in, I thinking plowing snow really isn't the end of the world.
Michelle?
I just have a question. I don't disagree with you. Like there are ratepayers, so they should get the same services as everybody else. But my question is if we go in there with the snowplow, will Volker and the rest of them just say, oh, well, the county's doing it, we don't have to?
Well, it would be pretty hard for me to say Volker's contracted by the Alberta government. We've dealt with Parks for a number of years. We've oiled and maintained a lot of these streets in the summer. I believe Kim will tell me if I'm wrong that we have a no fault agreement or whatever it's called with Parks, that we don't sue each other about the work we are done in there. And Kim can correct me if I've got the wrong.
No, well, we had to enter into agreement when we did it's project based. I had entered into agreement with them last year and that took a little bit to enter it when we did the pothole fixing up in there in July, because you have to do project based because they will not give you a blanket one because you have a certain timeline, then you have to get something done. Like, so you have like July 1st to July 15th or that sort of thing. So there's no blanket. It would be a different type of agreement that we would enter into.
But we have some kind of agreement, so we could probably work.
We don't currently have a blanket agreement. We'd have to enter into one.
Yeah.
But we can enter on our side. We're pretty flexible. It would be them Parks, what they would put up for barriers for that.
Shane?
I agree with you,
but
in part. But what difference is it of us then all of a sudden taking on the 515, the 501, the 525, all these other gravel roads? If the government isn't maintaining it, like in the park here where they're supposed to be plowing, do we all, we got ratepayers living on them roads too. So I'm getting at, where do we draw the line?
Well, I think there's 294 houses in Elkwater, and if we had 294 houses on the 515, it would be paved.
I know, but it still comes down to a
legal
part, or can we? what is the liability? I mean, if it is the provinces, their Volker's doing their part because they're supposed to under with their agreements with the government. I don't know.
I don't think Volker's actually living up to their agreement because Volker used to do the whole town site. This has gone on for like 20 years. Volker's foremans used to live in Elkwater. They would grade, first Parks graded the whole thing. Then Volker graded the whole thing. But then now Volker, 3 or 4 years ago, didn't plow at all because they didn't trust their staff in town with the park, with the truck. And then they've reduced it to they do what they call the business loop, and the rest of you are on your own. And so Parks bought a 1-ton truck, depending whether they have staff there, or if it's a long weekend, they don't work, or the ratepayers have no way of contacting Parks for the plowing. Like I know last year there was they had snow in there for long 3-4 days, and the guy goes, "Oh, well, if I'd have knew there was snow, I would have plowed." The old park staff lives in Medicine Hat now.
Mr. Chairman, just, we can enter into an agreement. If there's direction from council, we can enter into agreement. That's how that would go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to.
Hold on, Ernest.
Sorry.
Robin?
So I've talked with my cousin actually at one point was working with Volker, and when we were chatting about the 515 and how the province works with them and you know sometimes why it wasn't being paved or graded as much. I know we're talking about snow plowing in the town here, but it's the same stakeholders. So I'll just use this analogy. He had alluded to the fact that you know they would put out a request for funding in order to get it approved prior to doing it. It's not just a force account type of thing. Perhaps part of our approach from a council perspective is to go to both the province and to Volker and say, hey, listen, if this is something that we are viewing as a priority, perhaps the challenge is more about the funding that is being allocated to Volker. I see the province where maybe the county provides a little bit of additional funding to Volker on an as needs basis for plowing. If the province isn't going to fund the over and above, and we see it as a priority, we use some of the taxes that we collect in order to fund some of those as needs projects or plowing. That may be one way of approaching it as well.
Richard and then Darcy.
As far as I know, we don't plow any hamlets, and I can speak for Desert Bloom especially, and that's a very large tax base. So I don't think you can go that direction with the tax base. Some of the other ones will get their main roads done and if it works out and stuff, right? And granted, Elkwater has a lot more snow almost all the time than we do. The other thing is that in the meeting, the last meeting that we had in the fall with Peter Swain, that was a question that was brought up was, what about the snow removal? Because it's not happening, and when it does, it's a poor job. And he told us that Parks, or whatever the right title is, has a contract with Volker Steven. It's their job, and they're supposed to be plowing them, and they don't need us. It's their jurisdiction, their area, and they'll handle it. So I think that like we could help pass on the message that it's not happening out there, and those people deserve a better service. But really, Ernest, none of the other hamlets are getting it either, and I know Desert Bloom doesn't unless it's impassable, and then we get it. Okay.
Darcy.
Yeah, I was going to pretty much say the same thing, that's probably why Volker's doing what they're doing, because around all the houses there's probably no place to plow it. And if you are, you're going to bury somebody's car or something. So it's no different than the other hamlets where we have to, same situation when we don't do it until we have time, and then we got to haul it out of there or find some place to dump all the snow.
Yeah.
it's never, while they've plowed it with graders for years, they plowed it, like the streets have always been plowed sometime. Like it's not a technical issue of getting it done. I mean, lots of people grumble because their driveways get covered, but I mean, they live with it. It's getting your driveway covered is a lot different than you got 5 blocks to go with no snow, full of snow. If Parks, it says there's not a problem, Volker's doing it, I'm not sure why they have a plow truck and plowing because it's not getting done. So it's, we have a lot more snow out there, and I'm not saying, I just think it needs to be so this happens. That, you know, it's not just that Parks, you know, whatever reason don't plow or, you know, this is that, well, Volker does it, no, Parks does it, and nobody does it at times. And I think we need something to break that chain. And I think we have as much influence as the poor people that live there or more.
Would it make any difference if we were just the contact point? Here's to phone in, so could we contact Volker or the Parks and ask them, you know, like when I was living on the farm and I had my road was blocked, I would phone here and say, hey, can somebody come out and plow my road, right? But if they don't have that, who can they expect to do this for them?
Well, there's a lot of questions to be asked here. Why don't we, because we should have another meeting coming up with Peter Swain. We're supposed to have it every month, month and a half. Kind of been a little busy and forgot about it. Yeah. So let us get back on his case and see what we can do with lighting the fire under. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be an improvement if we would, you know, contact us if this is not happening, because at least we'd have a number of when it happens, don't happen. If we're not going to do anything, if nothing else, we can at least bug Parks of why this is not happening. These were the days that we had complaints. This is the days. I think it's a start. I don't know. You probably get a bunch already.
Kim.
Sorry to, this might be something that Parks has identified Cypress County as being their emergency management provider. That's something that Terlin's been working with Parks to get some clarification on that. But for the process of clarifying, because I think that's what I've been hearing in the conversation, is that we can contact Parks and clarifying the level of service so that to make sure that they're meeting and have some emergency capabilities. So that might be something that we could do, because it seems like there's a lot of questions and we're getting information third person and fourth person. So this might be a way of getting some clarity back to council.
Yeah, I agree, because we're still on the emergency management or the DEM side. We haven't got that figured out yet. We're still, because of COVID, we're
in their minds, we're still responsible for emergency management for them. So those are very prudent questions that would have to be answered to fit, you know, in that portfolio.
Yep. Oh, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it's timely to talk to Peter Swain as well, because back last September, we had proposed just a few minor amendments to be able to get a fire services agreement in place between the county and Alberta Environment and Parks. And so I thought we were very close to getting our agreement executed, and it's just kind of fallen off the cliff and gone into an abyss. So I'm not sure. So I think, there's a number of topics that we could sit down and have a discussion on. So I think it's, very timely to have that meeting with him.
Ernest?
So anything that moves us forward, I would feel is progress. And Yeah, I mean, if we're dealing with fire services, snow, being able to access medical, have an ambulance come into town or whatever is part of emergency management to me. And if you got snow up to the bumper, our firefighters can't get to the hall and the ambulance can't get in. I mean, yes, somebody might jump up and say we have a tracked vehicle get there, but I don't think that's relevant.
Okay, so we have a direction here to get a hold of Peter again. Are you were making a motion, or what do you want to do there?
I can make a motion that we get a hold of Peter Swain and move what we've talked about ahead.
Okay. Do we need any more detail on that?
I would, so Mr. Chairman, suggested wording would be that contact the Director of Alberta Environment and Parks to discuss snow removal concerns as it impacts emergency management, all facets of emergency management, and continue the discussions about the fire services agreement and other related concerns.
I thought I said that very well.
Yeah, little different voice, but it was good. Okay, is everybody good with that? Any more questions or comments? Not seeing any. Oh, Shane?
On that, when you're talking about emergency management, I think you guys should really be, and we talked about this, Ernest, the escape routes. That's really got to be brought up in case there is a fire, that there is an escape.
Yeah.
Campers and everybody under that emergency management.
Yeah, that's all part of the DEMS issue that we've been trying to work on. Okay. Go ahead.
Shane, just for clarification, we did talk to, when we were talking to Peter Swain, we discussed the exit going out the west end and the fact that we would like our firefighters, our fire chief out there to sit down with Mr. and Mrs. Russell and confirm the route through their place. And so that was on his to-do list, and I guess we'll just remind him about that. So.
See where he's at.
Yes, but remind them, if it's too late, it's going to be a disaster. It has to start moving forward because we're getting dry already, and we're only into March, and you get a fire coming over that hill. Oh my God!
It's okay. We still got 1.5 feet of snow.
Mr. Chairman, we also spoke with the Minister of Alberta Environment as well. That was the last. That was the last.
Yeah, we have been doing a lot out there. It's just COVID's kind of put a stop to things.
Just one comment, if we're looking at going through Mr. Russell's, before we jump up and we do that, I think somebody should contact him to see if it, just because there's that old road there, doesn't mean that there want all those people driving through their yard. I think we need to formalize that.
No, and Mr. Swain was doing that. We asked him and he wrote it down in his book. I watched him write it down in his book, and he was going to be talking to Russell's. Pardon me?
Yeah, but it goes through his yard.
Yeah, so no, we're on top of it, Ernest, but we need to get some answers, and that's where we are now. So we'll get back at it.
I don't think that's a road lounge, guys. You better look on a map. I think that's a private road. Because that was a road last built, because they used to go out, their access went through Elkwater.
Yeah, no, it's just an agreement that the parks had worked with them on it, and we're because of this COVID, we haven't got back like we said we would every couple of months, and we'll hammer on it some more.
Okay, any other questions? We're voting through Tara Lynn. Okay, vote. Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 11.7 is the Irvin Library discussion, and I believe Councillor Geigley and Deputy Reeve Oster have a verbal presentation. I believe.
All right. Mr. Darcy, run with this.
So being the chair of the board, Councillor Geigley has delegated it to one of the workers, I guess. Yeah. A couple of things. Well, one of the first things was we were hoping to have a presentation of what a new library building would look like at this meeting, but the big guy beside me said we had too many delegations already, so we got booted out till next week or 2 weeks, which is okay. It was a full agenda. I just threw something together for council and any of the ratepayers that are out there. Just something to take note of. So it starts off. I think all of us councilors have noticed that in this building, there's more than one bathroom available for us to use. The Irvin Library has one, and it also houses the furnace, the hot water tank, and the janitor's supplies. Little kids are scared to go in there. A little warm in council chambers today. Let's turn on the central air conditioning. A little warm in the Irvin Library. Let's turn on the small window air conditioner. Cold in the old library? Sorry, that's all that old furnace can do. Step into the old library, and the first thing you notice is that unique, musty, moldy odor. Welcome to Cypress County's public library. This building's lifespan was over a long time ago. It's done. What is being asked of council is to make a long-term commitment to continue to provide a much-needed library service. Thank you for listening.
Darcy, your follow-up speech? Is there anything else, or you were just bringing it in as? Any questions or comments for Mr. Geigley or Mr. Holster? Not seeing any? Okay, we don't need a motion on that one, do we? No. Okay. So we're on to 12.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also too, under unfinished business, does council wish to look at and give direction on the delegations that you had today? Is there, I know it's not on the agenda, but would you like something brought back in 2 weeks' time, or would you like to give direction today? How would you like to proceed with that?
Okay, so we would look at 12.2 and 12.3.
Yeah.
12.2 being
If you
Halo.
guys are okay. Sorry, I know it's mid.
Sorry, I guess I should have said that with mic on. I would like to discuss Halo before we move on.
Okay, and then 12.3 is that road going.
Range Road 23.
Which one is it?
23.
Yeah. You guys want to discuss on that? Because there was some stuff and some ideas that need to go forward to our staff to bring back. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Is everybody good with that? Not seeing any arguments. We will go on to 12.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Township Road 120 pavement rehabilitation and intersection improvements. Before you is extensive background and several recommendations and several ways to go about this project. And I believe that Kim, he knows the details of this. He would love to come and talk to you guys about it. Well, there will be questions when we look into the different recommendations. So if you look at recommendation number 1, is that the council proceed with the 120 pavement rehabilitation intersection improvements project and an estimated approved budget of 7.8, and increase the budget by 2.6 to include the paving of the 0.88 kilometers of Range Road 61A and the 2.8 kilometers of Range Road 63. So that's the first one, and then there's several ors.
Okay. Richard, do you want to make a motion so we can discuss?
Yeah, I'll make the motion for number 1 to proceed with 120, just as you just said, so that we can get going on the discussion. And if I have the floor, I will also say that I think it's a great opportunity to get some more roads done that are on our 5-year plan, and probably I'll ask Shane's or look for Shane's thoughts on it. But I'm thinking if they're in the area and we've got some good numbers, we should roll on it.
Shane.
Well, I agree with that you're not going to see $77 asphalt every day per ton. I mean, like the estimates were showing, the engineers thought over 100, and they come in at $77. It's very reasonable, and I know it's an expense now, but you're saving on the long run. I'm trying to do it later on. It's time to do it.
So I read through this, but I can't remember what it is. That 2.6, where are we getting that from?
That would be something that we'd bring back in our capital plan, and I'm talking with our finance guys right behind us, but we would, when we look at our plan, it'll either come from one of our grant funding, but either federal gas tax or MSI funds. But that's something that we would have to sit down when we do our capital plan, and because we already have some money allocated, but I think that's fair to say, correct? Yeah.
So you're going to your 5-year plan?
And our
Would that
plan was to
affect?
bring back our capital plan at next meeting after we knew about the operation. So it'll be coming. So if we knew that which way you'd want to go, we'll bring back where it'll come from.
We have ability to fund it.
Yeah. We just
We have
don't know which grant.
unallocated, yeah, we have unallocated MSI, significant unallocated MSI.
Shane?
Oh yeah, I forgot to point out too. When I looked up the bids and that, you could tell everybody was pretty hungry on this job, because we even had outfit from Edmonton. Border is from Red Deer, but Sandstar is from North Edmonton, and they even bid on it. So we got very good pricing.
Any other questions or comments? Ernest?
Well, I think we got good prices. The side roads that we're plowing, they've been problems forever. Or plowing, I've got plowing on the repaving. That I think we should do this. I mean, I haven't seen many projects in this county where we did something good that turned out bad. You know, and these are good projects. Paving is always good. It's most of these roads have a problem, or they wouldn't be on the list.
Any other comments?
These are projects that are identified in our 5-year plan by council. So that's why we thought it was an opportune time to bring it back for council's review.
And it was noted on our road tour as well when we were out and about.
Well, if we can find the money to do it, we might as well do it. Next year, there might not be any funds coming from MSI or anything. So.
And I did want to note that, which it's hard to see on the map, but this was going across the highway in front of Big Marble. So it was doing the 150 meters to their entrance. So I know that's been a conversation. So that's something that heavy traffic we'd also be looking at their request too. So that would help with that area.
Richard?
Through the chair to Cameron, has transportation ever shown us anything of what they're going to do on that 63 on the north side of number 3. Like, we had heard that they were going to do a turning lane or do something for that road because of the increase in traffic, right? But, and we talked about it a little bit the last time, but nothing's been, we haven't got any info, have we? Is that something we could talk to Darren about?
Well, they told us about it, but I've actually been following and I haven't seen any RFP for the work. So I don't know if they're just still in the planning stages, but I haven't seen the tender come out. But that's something that through this process, we have to follow up with the Lethbridge Regional Office to go over some of these details with the connection of the 120 and number 3, and then also 63 yeah, so that's, and then number 3.
Because it would be interesting to see if they're doing north and south side, like how they're doing the turning lanes, how far they're going to go into our county roads,
Actually,
right?
we had our engineering consultant look into that and they were only doing the north side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Oh, you didn't have your hand up.
So we're talking about doing all of it then, or what are we talking about?
I think that was the motion that was made was for option 1, which was the Range Road 63 and also 61A for the 8.8, 880 meters in front of phase 1 through 4 in Desert Bloom. Yeah, well, I didn't know this, but we actually paved 6 years ago south of phase 4, and we were waiting until all the phases were done before we finished off that road. So that's the rest of the road's been done, but we were waiting because it's really it's held together by it's pretty alligatored there because it's so much heavy traffic for the last 4 phases of development that we're at the final phase and kind of at the last 20 lots, I think, that are through construction. So, but yeah, it would connect to the city's south boundary road.
To the city's oiled south boundary road. Just
Well,
gotta throw that
didn't
out
they
there.
pave that? It's, yeah. You good, Darcy, or what?
Shane wasn't around that company at that time to make sure the quality was there.
Are you good? Or you have another question? Yeah, it's all right. All the pink stuff, yeah.
So we're doing all what the 2 greenhouses wanted.
No, actually, if you look at one was up to a portion of the. Can you pull up the map? Because I want to make sure that I'm answering. It was just 150 meters up to Big Marble's entrance. Not all the pink. No, that's why when you said all the pink stuff, I seen it in your face. I knew we weren't talking the same thing. If you can pull up that one would be fine.
Well, now
So
you confuse
just
me.
to the, you can see there,
Yeah.
just to the arrow, not where all the pink is. So as you can see there, it's that stretch there, and then and there should be one more picture from the other side of the road. The next one.
Oh, that's that one that runs by that transformer.
Yeah. And then the 60, this one shows it's 8.8 meters. And so I believe it was for 2.1 kilometers. So it just on the north side of the road from the transformer, it went, I think 170 meters to be exact, right to their entrance. To the first driveway. And then a few of the little off roads that went on the south side of the road to those developments there.
So on the north side of the highway, going up there to Big Marble, before we approve that little part, we should be talking to transportation, because that little stretch they could do when if they're doing that intersection treatment.
And that's,
Because if we pave it and they do their intersection treatment, they're doing the wreck part of that.
and that's,
Pavement, so-
and that's 100% correct. So part of this is we didn't want to go, we've had preliminary talks with transportation of their timelines, but we didn't want to set up a meeting about who's going to pave what until we got direction from council. But once we have direction, we will shore up those timelines and responsibility of who's doing what.
Okay, I have no problem doing, say south of Highway 3 to the 120 on Range Road 63. But that north part, I think we better check with transportation first, because they're doing that intersection treatment. We're going to be wasting our money on that little stretch in there, because when they do their flares and doing their work there, they'll be wrecking their asphalt, because they'll have to mill off part of it to tie in.
Is that something that we want to potentially take out of that project? Is the north side of of 63 or north side of number 3 on Range Road 63?
Well,
Because that was
I
something.
don't think we got to take it out. I just think we should probably maybe wait or check with them before we do it. Maybe when they're doing the intersection treatment, just get that paving crew to do it at that time, right?
And we have to, because we have to check with them, because it's their property line, right? As soon as the road right away. So anytime we go on the road right away, we'd have to get permission. So this was the first step, and then we will bring back, we'll keep you guys apprised of the project, but that was one of the meetings that we had scheduled for that.
Well, I would like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, go ahead.
I honestly think we should, on that part, we've got to wait to see what transportation is going to do and when. Because I mean, if they're doing an intersection treatment, we'll be just wasting our money on that part. And I know with transportation, they're going to take their time. So I think it should be removed. Because if Border wants to come in and start work here in May, they'll want to know their project and their scope of work beforehand.
And we're meeting them next week. So that's why we're looking for direction on this, because this is added work, and we had to identify additional work prior to commencement.
Where did we go with Big Marble on that? Were they not supposed to, or was that MG in front of the? Is that what we ended up with? But I thought, what do we end with?
We end up with road use agreements with their access points. But the Range Road 63 is something that we can, it's such a small stretch that's something that we can come back to later on. Because that literally is 150 meters out of a 2-kilometer stretch. So it's.
Go ahead, Shane.
Well, no, it's just, if they do that intersection treatment, they're going to end up milling out part of our new asphalt to do all the tie-ins and everything else. So I just think.
Just take that right out.
Take it out would be my motion, and then open for the rest.
Go ahead, Richard.
Shane, the only thing about taking it out is then if the opportunity presents itself, it's got to come back in. There could be a 2-week waiting period. It could be a month, like we have to go through. If we leave it in with the understanding that Public Works knows that don't do anything until the agreement has been worked out with Alberta Transportation, then Public Works knows that they can go ahead and do it. But the way, if you take it out, you're asking them to bring it back to council again. And we want it done, right?
No, you're not.
Shane.
If we do it now, Border wants to know what the work is. They're coming in May. Transportation isn't going to do that intersection treatment by May. I'll guarantee you that, because it's not even on their radar scope yet. So if we go ahead and pave it, that 150 meters, they're going to wreck part of it. If they do their intersection treatment next year, they're going to come in and wreck most of that when they do their tie-ins and everything. So it's just a waste of money. So when they do their intersection treatment, that's when we could extend it that little bit because there'll be an outfit doing that intersection treatment. But I just don't think we want to spend the money in doing it and then have it ripped up when they do their intersection treatment. But staff has to know before May when Border gets here because they want to know how much they're crushing and everything else and how much they're doing.
Would it be an advantage for us if we approved it though, and then Kim went to transportation and said, hey, we have this in place to go ahead. They could contact Border because Border's already going to be on the site, and maybe then they could put a little bit more of a rush on that job because there's a paving contractor sitting on that road. Is that not the way transportation would work then?
Shane?
You think we work slow at times?
Kim?
Would, and thank you for the dialogue. Would council, would they like to see us give administration the ability to proceed, but with the notion, it could be in the motion that we come back with review on that portion because there's a bunch of little variables. I'd also like to talk with Big Marble because if they have a road use agreement and we're getting asphalt prices, this would be advantageous for them and for us to work in partnership. So there's a bunch of different variables that would happen, but if we know that council wants to see this done, then that's something that we can bring back without moving forward, but knowing that we're moving towards that direction.
Darcy?
So you're asking for $10.5 million and how much is funded by grants?
All of it. All of it minus, and I want to clarify, all of it minus the moving of the utilities and purchasing of land right away. But we obtained 3 grants for the 120, and then we obtained. Travis can touch on this, or Travis or John, is that we have some grant funding that we would put to match those portions of our.
That we can stack.
Yeah.
So originally it was 7.8, but we still had to pay for the land and the utility moves.
And that's common with grants, is that they, for moving utilities and the purchase of land is not, doesn't qualify.
Okay, so where the heck are we here? You made the motion. Richard made the motion, but Shane wants a friendly amendment to the motion, right?
I'm good with it.
You're good with it? Okay. Do you know what the friendly amendment is? From the library.
Jeez.
That we bring back
Good job, Chair.
further information about the north side of 63. That was on the tail end of that motion.
Yeah. Okay. We're good with that? Everybody's clear what's going on?
Because I'm afraid of.
No, there's no library involved in this one, there's. Yeah, sneaking that in there. Okay, no more questions. I'll ask for the vote. Carried.
Darcy lift his hand.
Yeah. Took his other arm to get it up in the air, but he lifted it. Okay, 12.2 Halo, Michelle.
Yeah, this is going back. Do we have to be in? Yeah.
Is it any? Well, we're just talking about what we're talking about today.
The only reason why we need to go on cameras
Mr. Chairman, legal, land, or labor?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go to 12.3 then.
Be in camera.
Oh man, I got so many things I could joke around. What's up?
Robin, you have no idea how slow you are right now.
We're just gonna go to 12.3, Robin, and we'll go in camera after 12.3 is done for the. Range Road 23.
Mr. Chairman, if council could give administration direction, that would be fabulous.
Okay, so we had a whole bunch of discussion there. Where do we want to go, or what do we want staff to bring back to us on this?
I don't know about anybody else, but I would personally like to see us do something. Just fix it up. I'm not saying that we should maintain it forever and ever, but if there was something that we could put a little bit of money into it and fix it and get it half decent, and then decommission the road and turn it over to the community or the community pastor that's out there, and then they have to maintain it, I'd be okay with that. But I think we should do something about it.
Okay, that's not an argument. We just need to give some direction for staff. Alf?
Yeah, my biggest concerns would be the slides, where the slides have happened, eh? Like how safe, like are they gonna keep coming down or whatever? And question for you, Kim, would you have to get a geotech in there to, so I guess we can get an answer from them, eh?
Just Dustin?
Okay, so I'll move that staff bring back some recommendations for Range Road 23.
Thank you. That's all I was asking for. Is there anything that you want added to that was out of the delegation today that's fresh in your mind? Ernest?
Well, I would think the recommendations, we should put some kind of a budget number on what we want to come back with. Are we going to spend $1 million, $500,000, $10,000?
I think it's more of a come back with options of what it's going to cost and what we can do and what's legal and what's not legal, and all that mumbo jumbo that I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. Your motion sort of didn't say that.
That's why it was very big.
Okay. Richard, do you have anything that you want them to bring specifically for that, or?
No, I think Kim understands that. I would like to see how much pain it's going to be to clean up those slopes, and what kind of regulations we have to meet in order to put the road back to the condition it was.
Okay, there's a very vague motion for you. I tried to get you somewhere. That's it. Yes. Okay, any questions or comments on that? Shane?
One comment, just so you guys know, that slide area will go on forever.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop it unless you go way up to the bank, and the environment and that aren't going to let you. Because I got property there and I watch it slide. I fixed my road a number of times. That's why I use the neighbors now, because he fixes his better. But it'll keep on eroding. You just can't stop it in there.
He's just like a mechanic, eh? Drives the worst vehicle around, drives over the worst road, and he's a road guy. Ernest?
I equate it to like Highway 41 hill at Elkwater. They've been piling dirt and pavement, and I think eventually when they get enough pavement that it slides down to the creek a couple 100 meters, it'll stop sliding. It slides every year, and they've drilled, they've watered, they've done everything. They've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's still sliding, and I don't see this being any good.
Okay, Alf.
Just to add to Shane's too, like, most of that material that you're gonna be digging out of that you're gonna have to haul it out of there. You're not gonna be able to bail it over the edge because of the environmental problem, with the riparian zones and whatnot, so. Expensive.
Michelle?
Yeah, it probably will be, but if we get staff to bring back, we'll know more. Once they bring back all the options and stuff, we'll know exactly what we can do and what we can't without the environment. Yes, all the options.
Okay, that's it. Dustin. Oh, you're voting. Thank God. Call for the vote. Carried. We can't hear him, but okay.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we couldn't hear you at all before.
Yeah, I know. For my other router was not working, so I'm back in the house here. This should be better.
Okay, you wanted to speak about Halo, or we're going in camera, or you
I
want
think
it out of camera or in camera?
I think that it should be out of camera. I think that it was a good presentation this morning, and we can have the discussion about methodology and I don't see any reason. I think, Terrell, you said earlier that qualifications for going in camera is land, legal, or personnel, right? And I don't think that it meets any of those. So I think
More money.
Yeah. Well, but we're talking about the reason and how we spend our money. I'm not necessarily looking for details on the specific dollar amounts that others have spent, as much as I am rationale and risks that I want to help to avoid as we support. So I think that it should be in public.
Okay, well, we'll go back to 12.2 then. Michelle.
Okay, what I wanted to say was basically, I think that by not supporting Halo, we are sending contradicting messages. Being on the FCSS, the South Region Director, everything we talk about is self-care and mental well-being and the mental health of our ratepayers and all that kind of stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, to me, living where I've lived my whole life, and I'm usually out there all by myself doing things I shouldn't, and it's a comfort to me. It makes my well-being so much better to know that if something were to happen, Halo could come and save me.
Okay. Robin.
So Michelle, are you suggesting that we haven't been supporting Halo, or just saying that we need to continue to support as we have been?
Personally, I think that the motion that was made earlier, I think we should do that and then provide continuing support for them.
Dustin.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Does anybody want to know some numbers? Because I had some numbers. So what we kind of promised last year with that motion for that emergency funding was $250,000 on top of our $80,500 that we already commit. So which comes to a total of $330,500. If I worked it out at, if we do their budget's $3 million, 1/3 of that's $1 million, or 34.5% that of the calls over the average of the last 4 years is $345,000. So there's my funny math for the day.
Robin.
Yeah, I was kind of penciling out the same type of math, came to the same numbers as Dustin did there. I support doing that. I think that if I go back to our last meeting where there was some confusion with regards to whether I was in support of or not, I just think that we need to make this as a statement from the county that comes from the county and not have that tax levy put on there. If the county is saying as a municipal government, we're going to come in and we're going to contribute 30% or 34% of the 30% based on the numbers that were given today, I can support that. But I think that we're not necessarily helping Halo if we do it through a levy, because I do believe that it will impact their grassroots fundraising. And I don't see the benefit of it, quite frankly. We have the ability to do it. And if we need to, we're obviously in the future going to be talking about taxation and plans and how that all goes, and whether it be a levy or it be a tax, one way or the other, we're gonna cover the cost and pay for it. So I would just prefer to see it that way. I think sustainability wise, it's a better course of action.
Michelle?
I really don't have any particular thoughts on how we should fund, how they should be funded, whether it's taxes or donations or whatever. I just think that it is an essential service. And we spend a lot of money on recreation, and we spend a lot of money on other like protective services, fire and police, RCMP and all that. To me, this is just, it should encompass all of it within our emergency services, and we should pay for it, and we should continue to pay for it because we use the service.
Okay, Darcy?
So now we just went from 250 to 330? Is that what I just heard?
Well, at 330, that would have been what it would have been on last year with 250 that we had originally talked. Because it was 250 on top of the 80.
Okay.
But you're not suggesting that.
I'm just giving numbers.
That's,
Yeah, I just thought I fell asleep here for a little bit.
well, you have been.
But I don't have a problem with funding them. Can we at least wait until that HEMS thing comes? We're shooting ourselves in the foot. Like, the more we give them, the less chance that the province is going to choke up anything. Right? Like, there's no need of it. He said he can go till 21. The whole year now. I mean, it's just here. I'm not seeing what the panic is here. Like, I don't have problems supporting them or whatever the dollar figure is. It's just we're trying to get the province to pay, but we're tripling what we put in. That's counterproductive.
Ernest?
I tend to agree with Darcy. I like the idea of we set some money aside for emergency bailout or whatever. They're doing well fundraising. The government should pay for them. I think we should be more of a emergency fund provider in that, if we absolutely have to, rather than committing a huge amount of money towards their operations up front. I greatly believe in Halo. I advocate for Halo. I just think rather than stroking a big check, we should, budget what they need, or I guess just we should take this cautiously.
Robin?
I'm okay with writing the big check, and Darcy and I have had some good conversations with regards to concerns about shooting ourselves in the foot from a fundraising standpoint. I think that the key to this is methodology. Why, what helps us to come to the numbers that we come to, realistically, what I don't want to keep coming back to the, it's not going to go down on my book, or, while we're here kind of a thing. I think that we need to stick to the methodology. We give the money, and we basically encourage the neighboring municipalities to step up. We've done what we can. But, I know that a large part of my frustration in the last year and a half here is that, we constantly, we'll do something, we'll give a donation, we'll say, okay, yeah, but it's just this year. We're not going to do it again next year. It's not to bail them out. I think that we're searching for a sustainable plan forward. I think that based on the 30-30-30 split, or the three-way split between the province, the foundation, and the municipalities, that is a sustainable plan forward. If the county is committed like we are, and I know that everybody in that room feels the same way as I do, in that they don't want to see Halo go anywhere. But at the same time, if we take that step forward and say, okay, based on the methodology, based on the numbers, here's how we come up to this decision. Just don't keep coming back to us for more and more and more, because the methodology is what we're using to come up with this number, and then support it. And they, just like they said to us today, we don't want to tell you guys how to come up with the money. We're not going to tell them how to come up with their budget, but we're basically providing them with money, and they are going to have to get other municipalities on board too. The province has to come up, but to me, this is kind of the top end as far as I'm concerned.
Shane?
No, I agree with Robin. The methodology, I mean, we're showing the province it's a $3 million to keep them going. We've said all along a third, a third, a third. So, I mean, we're showing the province that, hey, we're coming to the front. Here's our third. We know the province will not fund it 100%.
Yep, Michelle?
I agree with you, Shane. Like it's a third, a third, a third makes sense. But don't you think that if we don't do anything and we just say, keep waiting and waiting and waiting for that HEMS review, which on a personal note, I think that the reason we haven't got it is because it was pro Halo, but that's another topic. If I think that if we are just sit here and wait for the province, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think that we should show leadership and step up and pay our third, whether the province does it or not. And that way we can keep Halo, and eventually, you know, people should see, and the province might step up and say, hey, well, these guys are paying their third, maybe we should too.
A portion of our third. Not a third, a portion of the third.
A portion of our third.
Richard?
One of the other things is it'll be easier for the Reeve to approach Red Cliff and Medicine Hat once we've made for funding, once we've made a firm commitment on our part that we're going to do this much every year, because they're waiting for that, right? And this way, when he goes to see him, he can say, look this is how much Cypress County is putting in. We would expect you, as somebody that uses the facility, to make a commitment. No, he has a hammer.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to use it in a second. Robin?
Yeah, no, I was just going to clarify when Michelle said about the third, a third, a third. We're basically looking at 1/3 of 1/3 as the county contribution, and putting that out there. We have the capacity to pay. We have the capital. I believe that, you know, we'll know in a little bit here, but I believe that the majority of council does see this as a priority, and but I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page too, is that the methodology is there. We do our part, and then Halo has to do theirs now too. And it's not just on the county. There's other municipalities that have to step up. There's going to be pressure on the province to step up. If the province doesn't step up and other municipalities don't step up, and the grassroots dries up, it can't be on the county to carry everything. And so that's where I think this methodology is so important, is that we make our decision based on the methodology, and then we expect everybody else to step up, because we can't fund everything with this. We take our portion, and we can feel good knowing that we did that, but it needs to stop there though.
Okay, so what I'm getting out of this is Michelle started out with 250. Okay, so you're talking about funding the motion that was made a year ago to help them with the one-time buyout. And now, are we going to change our yearly? Dustin was up to 330, but Paul had asked for 250. So is that what we're going to move our yearly up to? Is 250 a year? Robin?
It wouldn't fit the methodology. You know, I would say that we look at that percentage base. I don't know how you do it kind of in the 5 years going forward, but if I asked for the numbers, they provided the numbers that they gave. I think that, you know, it's definitely something that we can approach the town and the city on to see if they would help contribute to the commitment that we make within our region. You know, there's a lot of people from Medicine Hat that have utilized that service as well. But I would support this being up in that 300 range based on the numbers that they provided to us.
Well, make the motion then.
Okay, I'll make the motion for 300,000 as the number that is put forward based on the presentation that Halo provided on a per annum basis.
So just for clarification, so is that starting in 21, or are we releasing the funds from the 250 that was committed? Because Mr. Carolyn shared today that they have the 250 as deferred revenue on their books from 2020. So I just want to, just to clarify.
Go ahead, Robin.
Sure, I'm okay with that. Like, I know that the 250 was based on something that was a little bit different, but it's not a hill I'm prepared to die on. So I'm okay seeing that through for that. And then the 2021 be the first year that this 300 would be a part of.
Yeah, releasing the 250 that was in the motion from a year ago. And starting this year, you want to move the budget to 300 a year for Halo, is what your motion is?
That's what my motion is.
Any questions or comments? Darcy.
Not gonna sleep tonight at all.
Do you want us to add a library onto this one too?
Why not?
Okay, any questions?
Sorry, can I just do another clarification? Okay, so the 300 starting in 21, do you want to put like forever ever, or do you want to put a time commitment just so administratively we know what we need to do?
Reviewed annually.
Robin?
Yeah, I'm okay with how, I think that they're going to want to know that it's not just going to be there and then be gone. Even if we do, I don't know, I think annually might be too often, Dustin. Is there a way to do maybe 2 or 3 years, something like that? So there's at least a cycle.
At least I can do a budget then off of it.
Yeah. They can and we can.
So just so a 3-year commitment at 3, so at 21, 22, 23, to be reviewed in 24.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry guys, I just really want to make it crystal clear.
No, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, how's the statement though? Sorry, we already gave it the office. Isn't that the statement? Sorry, we already gave it the office.
Darcy, you're getting a little red there.
So let me get this right. He just come in and told us he's good for money until the end of 21. Am I right? And we're an emergency fund upping this. And we went from 250 to 600,000 here all of a sudden. Because you're giving them the 250 and the 80 for 20, and now 21. So that's $500,000.
No, you're counting last year twice because he's already figured that in on his funds. That he acknowledged that he has assumed would be coming in. So you can't look
Get him to the end of this year.
Yeah, that's a part of to the end of this year. Correct. But remember, we also talked about the need to have sustainability. And the fact is that they cannot keep on coming to the grassroots saying that if we don't get a huge fundraising push, Halo's going to die. And so there will be a day in fundraising where the grassroots are going to be bled dry and they can't keep coming back saying, hey, we only have 2 weeks left. There needs to be a plan that's sustainable so that they can continue to fundraise and pull in what they need to. But they did that last fall, and it's not going to work every year that way. All of a sudden, one day, it's that tap is going to turn off and dry up. I lost sound for everybody there, guys. I can't hear anybody speaking.
Sorry, vote is what I said.
Oh, okay.
3, 4, 7. That's carried. All right. No.
Mr. Chairman, we're going into closed if that's okay. Is everything good to go into closed?
Camera. Somebody make